In the last episode, we saw how being overwhelmed with life stressors and lacking the resources and the skills needed to ask for help and resolve conflict have significantly impacted Ryan and Maria's intimacy and overall satisfaction. If you add to this picture the cumulative effect of failing to properly deal with the emotional infidelity that took place, as well as the way Ryan and Maria's relationship started and progressed, we begin to see how they created fertile ground for inappropriate behaviors. In this episode, we're going to learn about Maria's second affair, which took place through the interaction with someone she knew at work. We will see the subtle and drastic changes that can cause a professional relationship to devolve into blurred boundaries. Let's take a look.
No, you found Jason.
Well, and I was trying to explain the context of the lack of intimacy is, this whole time I was blaming myself for, I'm disregarding him. I'm not filling his needs. I'm not giving him what he needs. And, like, this whole vicious cycle of you're just not doing enough.
Sure.
You're not enough. You're the problem. Why doesn't this feel good? Why don't you want to do this? Why does he have such a sex drive and you don't? And like all of this, and Jason and I reconnected, and we knew each other. We'd been in each other's sphere for a good year before we really started talking.
So you said 2012 was the first encounter that you had with Jason, right?
Yeah, and then it was 2017, early 2017, when him and I really started talking again, and not there wasn't anything between us, at all. He hugged me one time when I worked. So he hugged me one time, and it was really funny because my shop hand got really offended. But he doesn't need to be touching you. Why is he touching you? Like, Tim, calm down. It's okay. It's okay. He didn't violate anything. He just gave me a hug. It's okay. And we drifted apart. He was around a couple times because he did service work for us. So he was around a couple times, but. It wasn't until I figured out who he was when I was working.
What year was that?
17.
Okay, so about roughly 5 years, no contact.
Yeah, it was early 17.
Okay.
And after I figured out who he was, he came to the dinner, and we were talking. We talked about the whole night, just what had he been up to. I hadn't left. I'd hopped jobs a couple times, but now I was working and with the history, I'm always really bubbly and friendly with the people that I know. So after that, I started answering the phone yesterday, or hello darling, or whatever, and it became a joke. And when he was working for the company that he worked for then, there was a lot of joking with him and the master electrician that he worked with over me. Like,
Now, up to that point of time, was that normal type of interaction that you had with colleagues, customers?
yeah,
Okay, so this was
Yeah.
kind of standard.
yeah. There's
Okay.
there's no
Okay.
off the charts here, and I used to wear my wedding band to work, but then I stopped wearing it to work because I bent the prongs on it. And
Because what?
I bent the prongs on one of my diamonds, and I stopped wearing it to work. But he had my number before I started work there, so he was like one of the only customers that had my phone number.
Okay.
And he never abused it, but he had it for the safety stuff that we've been involved in before. And I had to text him a picture of something, and I was on the phone with him. I had him on speakerphone, and I had to take a picture of the box that we were talking about, and I put my hand up to it like this for reference. And I heard Randy in the background go, "Dude, she's married." And it tickled because like it wasn't on the radar at all. He asked me to go to a concert with him because the guy that was supposed to go with him decided he didn't want to go. So we went to a concert together, and that was when we really started hanging out together. After that, we really actually started talking and hanging out.
Now, asking you to go to a concert, this was the first time he asked you anything that's not business related?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, historically, have you gone to a concert or something along those lines with somebody through business?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How did that register for you at that moment of time when he asked you?
We had talked, like, obviously the couple hours at the dinner, and then, when he'd come into the office, we'd talk while he was there. So it wasn't like off the spectrum of, hey, I want, like, it wasn't random for him to ask me,
Okay.
in my opinion. Like, it made sense for him to want me to go with him because we have a lot of common.
Okay. Which means that, and that's what I'm saying, that the context is important, because you're saying prior to that you are not into the habit of doing these kind of activities with somebody who's a colleague or a customer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what allowed you to take that invitation and make that exception?
Because we were building the friendship.
Okay.
I was comfortable with him, otherwise I wouldn't have went with him. But we shared enough interests, and like, I've always clicked better with men than I do with women.
So again, without getting lost too much into detail, right? We're saying that, there was that invitation, go to a concert, I checked with you, right? And you thought that it was with a group of friends, right? And you're saying, no, I specifically said it's just me and Jason, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go on that concert, then what happens?
Nothing. Like, that was the first time that Jason ever acknowledged or like unintentionally he cared for me, because I get overwhelmed in crowds,
Okay.
and it's that fight or freeze thing, and I
Okay.
kind of froze
Okay.
because there was too many people. I
Sure.
didn't know where to go,
Okay.
and I'm very traditional in the sense of I defer
Okay.
to the men in my life, and that's also the submissive side of me too.
Okay.
And like, that's the first time that Jason realized it. I didn't even realize it at that time, but he grabbed me and he grabbed my hand and he put his hand right here behind him, and he put me behind him, and he got me the hell out of the crowd so I could breathe, because I was like,
Okay.
sensory overload, there's too many people.
Okay.
And it was kind of an introspection moment after the fact of, him and I got talking about something, texting back and forth, talking about something, and I'm like, I don't remember what we were talking about, but it was something really deep, and I'm like, I feel like it's only fair to let you know that I am a submissive person by nature. And he goes, I know. And it literally stopped me in my tracks because that's not something that people pick up about me. That's not something that I feel normal people would see.
Okay. So, what registered for you during that concert is that here's somebody who intuitively knew what I needed in that moment of time, even before
Without knowing me at all.
Okay. And how did you interpret that?
At the moment, I didn't really do anything but just appreciate the fact that
Okay.
it got me the hell out of a situation that I was overloaded at that point.
Okay. So you're pleasantly surprised that somebody recognized a need during that time, right?
Yes.
But then that proceeded with you sharing with him
It was a while after that.
How much while after?
A couple weeks.
Okay. And what happened in between those 2 weeks?
We just talked more after that. Like we actually started to really get to know each other more than just the casual
Okay.
friendship of like.
And who initiated that, or who pushed further for that part of let's know each other at a higher depth?
I think it was probably mutual.
Okay.
I will say that every time there's been a choice or a point of contention, he doesn't push me to make, or he doesn't make the choices for me. He doesn't take advantage of that. He like, I need to hear you say this, or use your words. Tell me,
So we know for a fact it was not one-sided, it was mutual. It's because you know that your experience that you were never pushed into anything that you didn't want to or you're not ready for it.
Right.
Okay. Now, would you say one of the motivation for this, wanting to know more or have this friendship at a higher depth, was motivated by this experience that you had at the concert, that, I like the fact that somebody took care of me this way and now I'm curious more about you?
If it wasn't intentional.
Okay.
It wasn't like that.
Meaning though, was it conscious?
That light bulb didn't come on. If
Okay.
that was a driving force behind it, it wasn't.
Okay. But in retrospect, it seems...
It could be.
Okay.
It could be because like in that conversation a couple weeks later when we were talking about it, and I told him I tend to be more of a submissive, and he goes, yeah, I know. And I was walking across the warehouse. It literally stopped me in my tracks when he texted me back and said, yeah, I know.
And you see, and that's what I'm trying to kind of pay attention, is that, to go from this to sharing something very vulnerable, right? You sharing that submissive, that's not something that you share with everybody, right?
No.
Right? So there must have been something in between where like, I'm willing to share that with you, I'm ready to share that with you, right?
Yeah.
What do you think was in that middle? And the purpose of sharing that information with somebody?
Okay, I remember now.
Okay.
He has this thing with his leg that just randomly he'll have issues with his foot. He broke his ankle or something way back when. And he'll randomly have issues with it, that the only way to get his foot to quit hurting is to wear his boot for a week or two or whatever. I'm a watcher. I notice things. Like, I can pick out my customers, and he wasn't the only one that I ever did it with. One of my other customers, he hurt his back, and he was really gimpy, and I'm like, hey, what did you do? And he kind of looked at me funny. I'm like, you're not walking right. He goes, oh, I hurt my back the other day. I'm like, yeah, I can tell.
Okay.
And Jason and Mike walked into the office one day, and he had his tennis shoes on instead of his work boots. And I noticed it. And I'm like, what's wrong? What have you, that's not normal for you. Well, what do you mean that's not normal for me? I'm like, no, you normally wear your boots. And then we got to talking about it, and like, I can pick out the details of somebody that chooses to show themselves to me.
Okay.
I can pick those kind of details out, and like, that's the level that I watch the people around me. That even people who, normal people would say, well, they're a stranger. Like, I can watch somebody walk down the road and go, something wrong with her knee or whatever just by their way of going.
Sure.
And that's really what started it, is I noticed that it wasn't normal for him to wear his tennis shoes to work. And then we got to talking about that, and like, yeah, he watches me, or he would watch me when I was interacting with other customers. Like, he's a watcher too.
Okay.
And it was very interesting for me to be the subject of being watched, because I don't like being watched. I don't like being seen.
That's what you usually do, right? Now
Yeah.
somebody else is doing that.
And that's probably the intrigue that led to
Okay. So
wanting to know more is, but he actually sees me. What?
So it would be fair to say during those times there was a lot of opportunities to, I guess, conclude that we have things in common. We have very unique things about us as individuals that are in common,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's that we're both watchers or we both, relate at that level of intuition. But sharing with him this piece about I'm submissive, do you feel was there any part of this of testing the waters, testing the boundaries of the relationship, of what would this person do with this information that I'm going to give him? Because again, that's a big piece of information to give somebody.
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. I think it was just hey, I made you really uncomfortable by this observation, so here's something that will make it even, I guess.
Okay.
I made you uncomfortable and made you tell me something that's not.
I see. So this
It's
is
not comfortable for you to admit to me. And like when him and I started talking, he would not talk to me in text message.
I see. So really more along the line of here I am reciprocating that level of sharing that you have shared with me to make things even,
Yeah.
right? Which means that at that point of time there was some kind of a appreciation of what he was sharing and an obligation of I have to match what you're sharing.
I don't know that it was an obligation, but I guess.
Well, saying, well, I have to make things even, like you
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then what happened?
We hung out a little bit more. We went to lunch. Well, actually, on business, we went to lunch a couple times because he was the manager,
Okay.
and we were trying to get shit square with the account of
Okay.
we can't be doing the way that things are going. And he goes, no, I understand, because he'd done the warehousing thing and he knew where we were coming from.
Did the frequency of interacting, whether it's texting, phone calls, or attempt to meet in person, did increase?
Yeah, but not like exponentially, not at that point.
Okay. But it was a noticeable increase, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She talked about him a lot more than by that time where she talked about him a lot more.
Okay, agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was my day-to-day interaction of,
Okay.
hey, this is who,
But
this is
also-
what I did, this is who I talked to.
But also the friendship was getting deeper, for lack of a better word, right? In terms of I knowing you more, learning more about you,
Yeah.
that friendship was growing,
Hmm.
right? Okay.
And he was kind of one of my lame ducks of, his past relationships with women or, not.
When did that come about, the sharing about the relationship?
I really don't know. And you have to understand when I say I don't know, it bothers me because I literally have a 2.5-page document of this day, this day, this day, this day, this day. Because
worries.
that's the kind of OCD that I am about things, and I don't know.
But it would be fair to say it was very early on?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, we talked for. We kept it really casual for a while, and then it was when he invited me to the concert that it really kind of went from like just business casual
To depth of
friends.
a friendship.
Yeah, friends casual.
Okay, so
you know.
probably during that phase, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
he didn't like talking in text message. It took me a long time to get him comfortable to trust me enough to tell me things in text message and not like when we were standing at the counter talking or whatever, because it's been used against him in the past.
Okay. Meaning in other work environments?
In his previous relationships, if he wrote anything down, it was used against him.
Okay.
So
So at that point in time, I guess first question is that why did you feel that the need to convince him to text with you, right, via phone?
it's not like texting. It was that, no, really, you can trust me. I'm not out to get you for something. I'm not. I just want to be your friend, like, because.
But I guess why would he have any reservation about you at that moment in time? Why would he feel like he has to put that wall against you? Because at that point in time, there wasn't any expression of, well, I'm gonna date you, or we're gonna do a relationship, right? But,
His history. Like, that's the legitimate answer. And for me, it's not a lack of respecting a boundary. It's, no, really, you're okay. Like, you are okay. It's okay for you to talk to me. I'm not gonna do anything.
Perfect. Why was it so important for you to fix that part for him? Because it has that flavor of, you have this history, things happen to you, you don't trust women, you don't have to worry about that with me, right? I'm gonna go out of my way to heal you in that sense with me. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm a fixer.
Okay.
It's not, like, I didn't go out of my way for him specifically. Like, that's just what I do.
Okay. It could have been insert any other person in that situation. You would have the same
Yeah.
compulsion, whether it's male or a female.
Yeah.
Okay. At that moment in time, was there any indication that he was interested in you beyond a friendship way? Any hints? Any interaction? Any?
Honestly, no. Not over the line. Like, the first time that he ever said I love you to me was over Thanksgiving, and we were in South Dakota. And I was being totally open with Ryan the entire time of what we were talking about, like
There's nothing
the
happening.
relationship
Nothing
between the
hidden.
two of us. And like when Jason told me that he loved me, he's like, I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that you're important to me. I know you can't say it back.
Okay.
I understand where you're at. And I'm like, I handed Ryan the phone. I'm like, how the hell do I respond to this without really hurting his feelings? Because I don't want to hurt his feelings. Like, that's not what it is for me.
Okay.
I wasn't sexually attracted to him. I wasn't, like,
Okay.
at that point, I was not intimately, like,
Okay.
oh, hey,
You were.
I don't really find Jason physically attractive.
You were emotionally intrigued.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Okay.
I just care about people,
But again, it's you're saying up to November when he said I love you, right? There was nothing clear or direct on his end that would have made you think that he's interested in you, beyond a friendship.
The offhand jokes and remarks, but like with all of my guy friends, I deal with that, so I didn't like think it was anything special. Like with Keith, well, I'm the other husband, or
Okay.
all of the goofy jokes about our relationship, or the people that would happen to think that Keith and I are together or whatever, because we showed up to a party on Keith's bike, and then we left for 30 minutes, and then we came back, and then Ryan got there.
Sure.
And, so for me, it was just like, yeah, okay, whatever, I don't see what everybody else sees. Like, all the men in my life are like, no, you're worth it.
Okay.
You're beautiful. You're amazing. Like, you're this amazing person. I'm like, whatever. I'm just me.
So I'll help you out. Maybe this will help us with clarity. And I'll address it correctly. Along the lines of what? Even if people are expressing those signals to me or sending those signals, right? Usually they go over my head or I'm blind to them.
I don't take any credence to it because it's
Okay.
banter.
Okay, but again, that doesn't mean that those interactions are not happening. They're happening. You just rationalize them away. You're not taking them, right?
Yeah.
They just all kind of fall in the default. Nah, can't be that they're interested in me that way, right?
Sure.
Even if other people see it, even if other people bring it to your attention, you would always like, nope, erase it, or put it in the bucket of that. It's just banter.
That's just banter.
Okay.
In my opinion, it was.
So that's accurate though, right?
Yeah.
But again, that's usually your subjective interpretation of this, but other people might see it differently, and other people probably have seen it differently and brought it to your attention. Is that accurate?
Well, other people saw it. And
I'm not saying just in general with Jason, but because you said there is, and this is a pattern when somebody have a lot of guy friends, it's gonna happen frequently,
yeah.
right? But is that accurate that, at times throughout your lifetime and those friendships that people have said, hey, so-and-so is interested in you, and you dismiss it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boundaries are more thin drawn lines that define what's mine and what's yours. They are the rules of engagement that we expect of ourselves and others in social settings. In a committed relationship, there is no room for incongruent boundaries. How you conduct yourself with others doesn't impact you alone. The negative consequences of blurred boundaries can impact you, your partner, and the life you build together.
When she showed me the message about I love you, I was like, you need to put a stop to it. I go, you really do. And I told you that.
I did.
But I don't know. That was the only thing I'd said about it, is you need to put a stop to it. And I don't know. It's what it is. It's in the past. It's said.
Okay. Were there other signs that you have observed other than that concrete sign of I love you in November?
Him showing up to the house periodically and her rubbing his back in front of the couch. That was like,
He was.
no, he needs to get his happy ass out. Because he never even picked his head up to acknowledge me.
Yes, he did.
That was like, no, right there. He needed to go. And to me, it was just, go.
Okay.
But that's,
Well, we can back up to that because I did skip over that part. So, one and only time that Jason's ever been sick in the entire time that I've known him. Again, I'm the caretaker kind. And he was really, really sick. I'm like, and I talked to Ryan before. Ryan knew he was going to be there. And I'm like, why don't you come over here and let me work on your back and your shoulders and see if it'll help you feel better in your face, because he had a really bad sinus infection. So I wanted to work on his neck and his shoulders and see if I could help him feel better. And so Ryan got home from work, knowing that he was there. Jason was sitting on the floor in front of the couch, and I was rubbing his back and his neck. And he did, in fact, pick his head up and say hi to you. He did.
Okay, but is that really, whether he picked up his head or not picked up his head, that what registered for you as I have a problem?
the fact that he was sitting there with his shirt off and my wife was rubbing his back, that was a big problem.
Okay.
And I told her so.
Now, at that point of time, did it register that I have a problem with his intention or I have a problem with your intention? Because they're different.
I think I had a problem with his intention because of the situation. No,
Okay.
that's not. And the fact that she was going out to lunch more with. She'd go, oh, I'm going out to lunch, and then the next time you hear her talk about it was, oh, it was with Jason from
Okay.
D. Okay, well-
Which means that you were having problem with her interaction as well too, not just his interaction.
To a point.
It's either yeah.
Did I see it as she was worried about it? Because she said, hey, how do I handle this? As in, okay, I didn't think she was doing anything. Did I see him playing on it? Yeah, I did. But again, it rolled back to, oh, she doesn't have any friends up here, so okay. And going out to the DE shop to play cards, or going to...
All of which you were involved in.
Okay, so again, and this is the key thing that I keep hearing you say throughout the day, is that, well, there are a lot of these things were done in the light, they were not hidden, you were privy to it, there was nothing to hide, right?
Yeah.
And that's important, right? Because when somebody's operating in the public eye and they're not hiding, they have operating the assumption that they got a green light because I'm not hiding anything, right? And to me, it's going to be interesting to see as far as we cannot say just because I'm doing it in the open and not hiding it, that is going to be okay and accepted. But in order for us to, the flip side of that as well, is that we have to know what is it that you expect from her, what she expects from you, so that we don't confuse transparency with appropriateness. You guys follow this? Because I think that's a big part of the problem, because again, if somebody's like, well, I'm doing these things, I'm not hiding, I'm sharing, I'm getting a green light, right? But if there's also in the background, well, I disapprove, but I'm making an exception, but those exceptions are sometimes going to be, they're not very clear cut. We have this murky way of expectation, and that needs to be clarified. Fair? Okay. All right.
My frustration at this point is it didn't happen that way. You're not willing to hear that it didn't happen that way. Because you've got your days confused, and when I'm telling you somebody, and this is going to sound like I'm attacking you and I don't know how to say it, but somebody that you know is obsessive about dates and like knowing things and the compulsion to remember things accurately, you're telling me that I'm wrong, and I know I'm not wrong, and that's intolerable to me. You're not willing to hear that you're wrong.
Okay.
Now, are you saying okay because you think that's what she wants to hear?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's change that. So take back your okay and let's duke this out.
Well, no, it's too bad. That's the way I took it. He never picked his head up. When I walked in the house, he never said a freaking thing. And one point, he sat out in the pickup. When they went to whatever show, they sat out in the pickup.
Okay.
Nobody came in the house. She ran out the door because Jason was there.
But that's
And
not what
it's-
happened.
Okay, but again, outsider looking in, yes, details are important, but this is the part that doesn't make any sense to me. The big picture is the interaction itself versus which day it took place. You guys follow this?
Yeah.
Right? What happened Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, right? If I have a problem with that, with the interaction itself, the date becomes irrelevant in a sense. And here's, the two are arguing about this, but really the substance is like, what is it about that interaction that you don't like?
That's the thing, is that he's got this misconception of, well, he didn't come to the house, he didn't do this, he didn't do this, he didn't do this. Okay. But there's a viable reason for why he didn't do that time that you're holding against him for no good reason.
Okay, but I'll cut to the chase, right? We'll use this whole thing about, I come home and he doesn't have a shirt on and he's getting a massage, right? The two of you agree that that event happened? Now, whether that I would be okay with that or not be okay with that, and the determining factor would be, well, did he lift his head or not? Maybe that's really not the significant part. Maybe regardless whether he lifted his head or not lifted his head, that's the part that fundamentally bothers you versus the justification behind it. Do you guys follow this?
So there was more in my head besides if he picked his head up or not. It was the fact that I was going to beat him senseless and throw his ass out the door.
Okay.
But why? What good would have done right there?
No, but I think that's important when it comes to resolving conflict and the two of you figure out who's upset and why are they upset.
But, yeah, What was the premise of you being so upset? You knew he was there. You knew I was going to rub his back and his shoulders. There's absolutely no difference between him sitting there in his sweatpants and his shirt off than us going to the pool and seeing 35 other men without their shirts on.
So go ahead, please give her the answer.
Our house. Us on you two in our house by yourselves.
And Dustin and I together, alone, when we were living together, never bothered you.
It did. For what had happened beforehand, yeah, it did. But Dee was there.
But there was times that she wasn't.
I know.
Okay. So here's what's not being said, or what I think is not being said. And please correct me if I'm missing this. Something along the lines of like, I'm just not okay with my partner giving another dude a massage. Whether shirt on, shirt off, inside, outside. I'm not okay with that.
Okay,
Right?
enough said.
That's what's not being said.
But why? That's a fundamental issue for me because you know
Because
that
you and
like
I were already
helping
having
people.
problems then with him. Because you were,
No, at that point we weren't. And if we were, you never communicated that to me. You never told me that it was a problem. You never said any of this to me.
Okay. But which again, part of the issue is like, how do we know if we have a problem if we don't talk about it? But also, when we talk about it, are we talking about it appropriately? I'm okay with saying, okay, well, this bothers you. Tell me why, because I don't see any problem with it. Apparently you see a problem with it. Let's have that discussion. But that discussion needs to be actually staying on track, which is, I'll bring it back to, ask the question again. Why do you have a problem with?
Why do you have a problem with me taking care of people?
Nope, make it more specific, because this is not just taking care of people. Why do you have a problem with me giving a massage to another guy?
But that's how it
But that's what we're
does
fighting.
feel.
No. But that's what we're fighting about, right? Because it's not an issue of you're, giving massage to a girlfriend, right, or a kid, or a guy who is a family member. The problem is I'm not okay with my partner giving some other dude who's a stranger a massage.
Okay, what?
one of the big factors was, by this time, if I'm correct, he'd already said, I love you. And I said, you needed to correct the problem. But he's still in the house, and you're still doing it.
It's my
That
place
was-
of residence
Hold
too.
on. No, I still want to hear the answer. Go ahead.
That was my part of intention that I was horribly uncomfortable with, is it wasn't being handled. The I love you portion wasn't being handled. It was
Okay.
still,
Okay.
I had a very odd feeling about him when I first met him, and I never got any better. Especially when you guys started being more than just friends. More than just acquaintances. It got worse and worse and worse. I never liked him. I had very bad feelings about him from the get-go.
But again, the sum of those feelings toward him is because you feel that he is going to be somebody who would not respect the boundaries. Is that what it
Yes.
is? Okay. So again, bringing it back to the rule or the expectation of I'm not okay with you having this kind of interaction with somebody who I think have interest in you.
Yeah, for somebody that she already knew that I expressed that I didn't, that I was already uncomfortable with,
Okay.
to have her push the boundary on something that we had already discussed, that we had already knew that, hey, this is something, that was an issue for me.
Go ahead. Respond, please.
It doesn't. It doesn't matter to me that you never trusted him if you trusted me, and I was never giving you any reason not to trust me. There was no reason up until then for you to not trust me. I had showed you everything. I was completely above board with you. You and I talked about it. I told you I wasn't at all interested in it. There was no reason for you to distrust me and for you to
Well-
have that level of discomfort and not even tell me about it, and then somehow it comes around to, well, you did this and this and this and this, and this is all wrong. Well, sorry. Can't fix it if I don't know about it.
But let me clarify things here. I didn't hear you say, well, it's because I didn't trust her, it's because I didn't trust him. Or is there a part of this where you're because you didn't trust her?
No, I trusted her. I
Okay.
did not trust his intentions.
Okay.
When some other guy says,
Okay, perfect. So what I heard you say in reaction to that, well, it doesn't matter whether you trust him or not. If you trust me, then it should be okay. Right?
Yeah.
Now you can say, well, I hear you, but I disagree, right? But
I do hear you.
okay.
I do hear what you said.
Huh?
And in none of what I said, none of my statements that I said, do I not trust you?
Okay. So again, and maybe the two of you are dancing around this, I'll be the bad guy, right? So I understand that you're saying, well, I didn't give any reason for you to trust me in this interaction, but what the two of you are forgetting is what? Prior to that point of time, there was a friendship in which the boundaries were crossed. Destined, right? So we cannot say, well, that has no effect whatsoever, it's not in our subconscious at all, because, historically there have been some events of friendships line being crossed. So we cannot say that has zero effect, right?
No, I understand. It's just that I'm operating under the misconception that we had actually moved on from that, and that me being upfront with you and open and honest and showing you everything was giving you the things that you needed, and apparently I wasn't doing what you needed, and instead of just telling me about it, you just...
Yep.
And that's why I say that as much as transparency is important, a lot of people don't even have that in a relationship. But if you have transparency with no clear expectation, it becomes it loses its value, right? Because what's the point of saying, okay, I'm being transparent, but there's all these unspoken expectations that we're not communicating about directly. You guys get that?
Yeah.
When we listened to Maria talk about how her relationship started to develop with Jason, we learned that they reconnected through work during a time in which her relationship with Ryan was already experiencing a lot of strain due to being overwhelmed with life stressors, a decrease in intimacy, and poor communication and conflict resolution skills. What we also know so far in this story is that they haven't resolved the lack of trust caused by the emotional infidelity with Dustin, as well as Ryan's dishonesty. These elements created a fertile ground for inviting inappropriate attention and blurred boundaries. It's very clear that from the beginning, Jason's interest in Maria was not platonic. But despite the subtle and obvious signs of these inappropriate interactions, neither Maria nor Ryan did anything concrete to address those poor boundaries that led to deepening the connection between Maria and Jason. Maria's rationale for ignoring these obvious signs was through the following. 1, I'm not interested in him sexually. 2, he's just a male friend who banters just like any other of the other boys. 3, I'm not really doing anything in hiding, so it must be okay. Ryan's rationale for tolerating these obvious signs is feeling bad for Maria's isolation and wanting her to have friends. What I want you to think about is the importance of having clear, appropriate boundaries with others, and the necessity for having the effective communication skills needed to address and clarify any potential boundary violation. As we learn more about the story, we will see how failing to address those boundary violations led to more infidelity. Until then, be well, be safe, and embrace the possibility for a brighter future.